Hello, welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast, channel for film reviews, discussions and everything in between. I'm Chris Garner, joined by my co-host for today, George Aldridge, and today we're bringing you our review on Creed.
He's right over here. We had to separate him. He was fighting with the other inmates.
Hey, Donnie. Your father was a great man to me.
I don't know him. Ain't got nothing to do with me.
Well, I think you could be great too.
So what made you want to fight?
My pop was a fighter. Died before I was born. Bounced around foster care, in and out of juvie. I've been fighting my whole life. It's not a choice for me.
You see this guy here standing back at you? That's your toughest opponent.
Who's next?
I believe that's true in the ring, and I think that's true in life.
So you're gonna leave me too? You know how many times I had to carry the heavyweight champion of the world up these stairs because he couldn't walk. Ribs broken, nose broken, eyes swollen shut.
What are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of taking on the name and losing. Call me a fraud.
You're still caught in the shadow.
Every move that I make, every punch that I throw, everything's gonna be compared to him.
You are Apollo Creed's son, so use the name. It's yours.
This was one of my most anticipated films of the year. I think it came out in like November for the US, and then we got it in January, so it was a long wait for it, but I think we could both agree it was definitely worth it. So before going in, we usually just give our thoughts of like what we expected from it when we first heard it was announced, the director and the trailers and everything like that. I was a little apprehensive at first because I thought that, you know, I'm a huge fan of the Rocky franchise, and Rocky Balboa was sort of that comeback and bookend to the franchise. I thought it tied Rocky's character up. Beautiful ending, I thought. And then when this was announced, I was like, oh, they're going to sort of like milk the franchise now, and it's basically going to be a remake of Rocky 1 with a different character, and it's not going to be as good. But then, you know, the director was announced, trailers started coming out, and I thought, this actually looks like it has potential to sort of capture that magic of the original Rocky film.
Yeah, and it's the same here. I was really skeptical. I remember when they announced, I was a bit like, Then it was when they cast Michael B. Jordan. I was like, okay, this is interesting. Hadn't seen Fruitvale Station till a few months ago, but I'd heard the reviews of that. So when the director / writer Ryan Coogler was announced, it's like, okay, this seems like it doesn't seem like Stallone's going to be in their face without me sounding nasty. Then it came even more apparent that Stallone's almost going to be secondary character. And then the first trailer came out and was like, okay, this is going to be good, I think. It looked good. And the second trailer came out again, it got really anticipated, and you find out it's coming out 2 months early in America, which was a shame. Luckily it didn't get spoiled online, but it was definitely worth the wait.
Yeah, definitely, and I think you just said this is I don't know if it's the first one, but the one in a long while that Sylvester Stallone hasn't directed or has written, and I think you can definitely tell that from this film, but that's not in a bad way or anything like that. I thought Rocky Balboa was fantastic, and if you're sort of a fan of the Rocky franchise and you haven't seen this movie yet, the best sort of description I can give of this film is that it is that tone of like the original Rocky, maybe Rocky 2 as well, and definitely Balboa. You can definitely see this is a continuation of that. And I like that Rocky was used well in it, and it plays a big part in the story, because I thought usually with these like passing of the torch movies, it's very much focuses on the new person, and then like the old character might be in like a couple of scenes, if that. And I always hate passing the torch movies, but this without a doubt is the best one of that kind of movie I've ever seen. I think that how Michael B. Jordan's character of Adonis Creed and Rocky play off each other in the film is really believable, and a great continuation of the character of Rocky in the franchise.
Yeah, and that was the important thing. You talk about passing the torch. This is what the film had to be. You couldn't have Rocky too involved. You couldn't have him too little involved. Having him as the trailer was the right thing to do, and it probably is one of the best films. I mean, in my head, obviously, but coming off the back of Star Wars 7, that's it's not really passing of the torch because they're all there, but it kind of is. But Rocky does it so much better because you have to pass it. It's a boxing film. You're kind of a 65-year-old doing boxing, and the whole Creed setup was great. I mean, it's not really a spoiler, but obviously Apollo Creed dies, and you learn that Adonis was born afterwards, and it wasn't through his wife. And the wife kind of adopts him. That's the first scene, and I thought that was quite a strong moment actually. And it plays into the film as he goes to get his career in boxing. And from there, I mean, the first scene you can sense where the film's going to go, and it's so well done. I mean, you can't really credit Ryan Coogler. And if I was reading that he pitched this film to Sylvester Stallone before Fruitvale Station, and Stallone kind of shut him down, and then he was done with Rocky, and then actually after he saw Fruitvale Station, he thought, you know what, there's potential and it could work. So fair play for him for green lighting it, because obviously he had creative control, and I think that he knew he had to step down for it to work. Because if he would have wrote this, like I can't really judge his writing, but it wouldn't have been as good, and I don't think he would have been able to get the best out of the actors. I mean, Ryan Coogler probably had Michael B. Jordan in mind whenever he met him for Fruitvale Station.
Yeah, definitely, and like, not to badmouth Stallone, but if he had have written this film, it would have been difficult to know how much of himself he would have included in the actual script for the film. Like, he might have thought, oh, well, I'm Rocky, this is my movie, I'm going to give myself more screen time, whereas I think that if you have another director that can kind of, take a step back, write a new story with these characters, I think they can balance it out between the two a lot better. And like, we reviewed Fruitvale Station, I think it was from one of our film clubs. I'll put the link in the description below. And I'd heard good things about that movie, and then I think it was like sort of after I watched that, I realised that the guy who did this film is going to be doing Creed, and right there I was just so hyped, because Fruitvale Station, like in our review, it's such a great movie. Absolutely love it. Michael B. Jordan's fantastic in this one, so you know what a great actor he is. And it is a shame when we got Fantastic Four this year that you thought this might sort of like harm his career a little bit, as well as everyone else in that movie. But thankfully, he's had this big of a hit with this movie that I think that will sort of be like a blip on the radar, and he'll just go from strength to strength in his next few movies.
Yeah, I mean, just going into the character for a start, he's not a favourite for an Oscar nomination, but he's already been looked at as one of the outsiders. And for a franchise film, let alone a sports film, that's, I think, very impressive, especially coming off the back of Fantastic Four. I think they all knew it was going to be terrible, but it's nice for him to have some stuff to fall onto, because when they announced Fantastic Four, I remember being, oh, Michael B. Jordan, it's that kid from Chronicle, and you're looking forward to it. But luckily he's had this, and he's had Fruitvale Station to back him up, and he's going to go on to big things, and I think it's going to work in the sense where he's got his franchise for him to leech onto, as well as individual projects, which I'm sure he'll keep doing.
And I mean, at the end of, because we're going to be splitting this for everyone listening, we're going to do spoiler free now, the sort of the section we're in now, and then we'll warn you when we get to spoilers, because we don't want to give anything away from the film. But we will talk about sort of where we think the future of the Rocky/Creed franchise, I guess now, will go. And I do think that Michael B. Jordan, he demonstrates in this film that he has got what it takes to carry this franchise on his own. And yeah, he's just great in it, and I love sort of like where the story picks up. Like, a lot of people with the Rocky movies considered like the middle few to be sort of the most comedic or like over the top. Rocky 4 is probably the biggest contender for that. I love Rocky 4 to death for all the right reasons. I understand that Rocky 1 or Rocky Balboa, the more serious ones, are probably the best films in the franchise, but if you ask me which one I would just throw in and watch, switch my brain off, just enjoy, it's definitely Rocky 4. And that's sort of the whole like linchpin of this movie, is that obviously in that film, spoiler alert for Rocky 4, Ivan Drago kills Apollo Creed in the ring. And although they don't specifically mention Ivan Drago by name in this film, unfortunately, that is sort of like the whole framework of where this film picks up from. Adonis never met his father, so he has a really distant relationship from his father, and he sort of shies away from people comparing him to his dad. And I absolutely love that about the character, is that when you see Adonis Johnson, you think he's just going to be like all gung-ho, like, oh yeah, I'm going to sort of not avenge my dad, but follow in his footsteps out of my own choice, out of respect for him. But it's really not. Like, he's very close to his mom. We see that in the opening scene. And I liked that it wasn't as clear cut that he was just going to, he was all pally with his dad. I liked that he had that, distance between him. And then he sort of finds that when he gets taught by Rocky.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest strengths of the film, I think, was the reveal that he's taking Johnson as his name. In the final fight, actually, he is to come out as Creed. He does don the classic shorts, as you see in the trailer. But the build-up's great because you kind of thinking, oh, it's Apollo Creed, so they'll all know who he is, they'll all want to fight him, he's naturally going to be amazing, but he doesn't want anything to do with it until he has to bring it up. And then he says in his conferences, I don't want to, someone calls him a false Creed, he doesn't want to be known as a Creed, he wants to be known as himself, he doesn't want the push. Obviously, having Rocky in his corner helps him an awful lot. But that was, again, a really nice take, because you wouldn't think they'd do it, and the whole almost design of the character, that it was Creed's kind of affairs kid. It was not taking the name, it's kind of the opposite of what you think it'd be, and actually strengthens the film, I think.
Yeah, and also not just with Michael B. Jordan's character, but the actual character of Apollo as well. Like, there's not giving much away, but there's like sort of a news broadcast where they're sort of arguing, like, does this sort of like tarnish or cast a shadow on Apollo Creed's career? Like, he was held up as one of the greatest boxers in the world. I think he was like heavyweight, world champion at the time of Rocky 1. And then they're sort of looking back on the events of this now, saying, like, does this sort of like degrade him a little bit? And I like that with the character. And then as sort of the film goes on, it's about Adonis's acceptance of sort of his heritage and who he is, and that he has to embrace where he came from as he moves into, becoming the next champion. And also, obviously, we should talk about Stallone as well, because he has been getting immense praise for this film. Like, he's already won the National Board of Review Award for Best Supporting Actor, and he's rumoured to be getting a Golden Globe nomination as well for Best Supporting Actor. And it says here on Wikipedia, this is his first Golden Globe nomination since the original Rocky 39 years ago. So I think if he did win that would be a really nice sort of like bookend to the character of Rocky. Listeners may be wondering as well why Tate isn't on this recording. He is very verbal that he is not a fan of the Rocky franchise at all. I think, was it he who said it was just like boxing match, some kind of arbitrary life lesson at the end or something like that?
That
was that
me,
you? I can't, yeah.
I've seen them all, I like them for what they are, but
yeah.
It's ironic though, because he is very big on sport, but that might be why he does dislike Rocky. But he's going to be around for probably far more Oscar films than I am. I mean, he's watched a film about cartoon people getting on. I don't have that kind of loyalty.
No, neither do I. But it's kind of like, I wonder if Tate did watch this film, if this would sort of change his opinion on it, because a lot of people just see Stallone as the kind of, the muscle-bound meathead in these 80s action films, like the rival to Schwarzenegger and everything like that. But I honestly do think that, given the chance, when he can, Stallone can turn in a fantastic performance when he wants to. Really good dramatic piece. We see that in like Rambo 4. We see it in Rocky Balboa, and I like that he's sort of revisiting these characters again. I think he's having a lot more success with that than Schwarzenegger is, what with like Terminator Genesis and everything like that. There's rumours that he's coming back to do another Conan film as well. And I think that the sort of drama behind it really helps the character. It's not just like another dumb sports or action movie. He is playing a character who, has a past, who tragic things have happened to him, and, tragic things are happening to him in this movie as well. We hear in the trailer, this isn't giving anything away, that Rocky's sick. And when I first read the initial plot synopsis of this, my heart just sank like straight away, because I knew exactly what it was going to involve when it says that, Adonis is going for the championship to prove himself, and Rocky has to battle an opponent that even he probably won't be able to face. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be rough. And, it does get very dramatic, it does get very emotional. And there were points in the film where I was actually getting a little bit misty-eyed as well, because, as I say, I love the character of Rocky, and seeing what he has to go through in this movie just broke my heart just watching it, and Stallone just plays it so well.
Yeah, and the scene, I'll be talking about more in the spoilers, but he gives this monologue when he's at the doctor's. But the problem, one of my only faults of this film is the way they handled it, that in the trailer they show it, him being ill, and I thought he's going to be ill for the whole film, but actually it doesn't come in till, say, the final half hour. and that was quite annoying because I was waiting for it to happen. And obviously, okay, I'd rather be prepared going in because I would have been probably a lot worse off had I not known. But it was just one of them. It wasn't spoiling it. They wanted you to know, but I thought it might have happened a little bit earlier. But Stallone is absolutely fantastic in this, and I know you was kind of talking, saying that he's got his career revival and Schwarzenegger hasn't. If you look at Stallone's career, it revived with actual Rocky Balboa in '06. After that, he got the Expendables and a few more. So he got, arguably come back to Rocky. Was it 10 years ago, maybe? Yeah, 10 years ago now. Christ, I feel old.
I know, right?
I think he's doing it the right way, and it's going to be... I think he's entering a retirement phase of his career, a bit like a Harrison Ford type, where he's going to some of his older projects, and I think he's going to be taking the corner. I think there's talk of a Rambo film or TV show. I think he's looking at retiring, and he's doing it in the right way. And he's just absolutely fantastic in this. I really hope he gets the Oscar. Would he win? I don't know. I haven't seen all the other films, but he's got a really good chance, and he's getting the heat going into nominations that I never expected, but I'm so happy he's getting.
I really do hope he wins it. I think it might be a case of like who I wanted Best Lead Actor to win last year, where I was so hoping that Michael Keaton was going to win it because I just love Michael Keaton to death. I mean, Eddie Redmayne's, great in that movie and everything, but oh man, like I don't want this to be another situation like that. Like to see Stallone go up to the stage and accept that award would just be amazing. But also in this film we have some newcomers as well. We have Tessa Thompson, who plays sort of Adonis's girlfriend in this, Bianca. They kind of, I don't think she's as sort of shy as like Adrian was, but you can definitely see them try to frame something like that where she's a singer-songwriter who's just trying to do a bit, make a way, and they give her not a disability, but they make her human, and you do actually buy this relationship that blossoms between her and Michael B. Jordan, and I do think the two really work together. And I think if this does get sequels, then we may see that sort of relationship blossom like we did when we saw Rocky with Adrian.
Yeah, I mean, when it was first, you didn't really think they're going to have like a girlfriend type character. She's not really in the trailers, then you kind of introduced her, and she's very likeable. And she does a good job. She's not in your face, if you know what I mean. They use her well. There's not too much of her, not too little. But everything that happens on screen of her and Michael B. Jordan's very believable. I think they've got really good chemistry. And it'll be interesting to see what they do as the films progress. But you're absolutely right. I mean, she is probably going to be the new Adrian. Obviously, there's no shouting in the ring. But they might do that. We never know. I can't really say much else. But it was a kind of nice welcome because everyone's gone in talking about Apollo Creed's son and Rocky, and you're forgetting that there is going to be a wide range of characters, from trainers to promoters to obviously like maternal. I didn't really think that Apollo Creed's wife would be in it. That sort of stuff. I think Apollo Creed's trainers even got a cameo at the start.
Yeah.
And it was just really well done. And again, just credit goes to Ryan Coogler for writing a film so well done that doesn't just rely on the nostalgia of the past.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find the actress who I think it's Felicia Rashad, who plays Apollo's widow. I thought she was fantastic in the film as well, and she's very protective. She just wants to see the best for her son. And I thought she played that really well, and not giving anything away, but like towards the end, she gets some good laughs as well in between the fight. She's watching from home. It reminded me of sort of like Rocky 2, where Paulie and Adrian are watching from the TV, and you do get those moments where at first she's apprehensive that her son's going into boxing. She doesn't want him to follow that path. I think as the film starts off, it's established that he's got a pretty decent job, going for a promotion, like he's doing well in his life, but that's not for him. And then, as the film goes on, she sort of accepts this, and sees that he is his father's son, and this is his path, and then she begins to support him. And I thought she was brilliant as well in the film as a newcomer. I'd love to see her in the sequel. Let's talk the music a little bit as well. We do get very much new music in this. We get a few reprises of the old Rocky music. Unfortunately, I don't know if this is a spoiler giving it away, we don't get any Gonna Fly Now. And that was a bit of a shame initially, because that is so integral to the Rocky franchise. But again, this isn't the Rocky franchise, really. This is sort of an epilogue to that, I would say. and it's, you know, springboarding a new one. And most films really struggle with that, I think. But as I said, I think this one does it so well in that it is sort of a sequel to Rocky Balboa, but it is sort of its own thing, foundation movie to move on with. And I think the music, you know, signifies that. We do get a new song, which I believe is called Getting Stronger, is it? Or something like that?
I can't remember, but it's in the new, where the famous stair run is. There's a modern twist. There is a quad bike or two. It was a really cool scene. Gonna Find Out's not in it, which is a shame. It's one of my all-time favourite songs. I've got no shame in saying that. It's a glorious song. I've almost passed out to it. That's a true story. It's at the big boxing match. When the match starts, you get the start of it, and I was really excited, and then it kind of cut away, and I was devastated.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
It's kind of. I'm upset it wasn't there, but I'm kind of happy because you've got to think it's evolving. This isn't Rocky. This is Creed. But I would have done anything to have just, you know, seen him running up the stairs with that on in the background.
I know, yeah, it's so iconic to this franchise, and we got it again with Balboa, so I don't know if we'd got it again if it'd be a bit, you know, overkill to keep getting it, but I don't think it would, because that song's just amazing. As I say, we do get like a sort of new one, like This Franchise Is Gonna Fly Now. It's sort of like this big, like, rousing, inspirational montage song with you know, like choral music in, similar to Gonna Fly Now, and we do get that shot which you see in the trailer of him in the similar grey hoodie as he's like running down the street and everyone's running after him, which is very sort of iconic of the Rocky franchise as well. So we'll sort of end off our spoiler-free section before we move into spoilers with just overall positives and negatives without giving anything away or too in-depth. So, George, what were some of your positives and negatives?
The writing, directing, cast performance. In all honesty, the positives is almost the whole film. I think they did a great job. My only negative is product placement. It's not like Michael Bay product placement. With this one, you have Everton, the football club. Stallone's a big fan. The rival boxer, played by Tony Bellew, a real life boxer, is a massive Everton fan. So the Everton badge is everywhere. It's in their tops. It's actually filmed at Goodison Park, which is the Everton ground. In the advert, Everton's everywhere. It's not a massive fault. It's just really distracting as a football fan.
My positives, pretty much everything near enough. Love the performances. I think that Michael B. Jordan and Sylvester Stallone work off each other really incredibly well. Brilliant direction. I can't wait to see what other projects Ryan Coogler has, and I would love to see him come back to direct Creed 2 and 3. I know you were saying before we hit record that's been rumoured that they're going to have another 2 sequels. I want to see this franchise continue, and I think it does set up in a fantastic way. As I said, best passing of the torch movie I've ever seen in my life. Negatives, there's one sort of picky one, and this is more in style. Like, the film is so just close to the style of the more serious Rocky films. But then we get these weird sort of shots where, like, a boxer will walk into the ring and it'll freeze frame and it'll, like, post all their stats up on the screen next to it. And, like, every time it did that, it really took me out of the movie, because that's never been done in any of the Rocky movies before, and it almost felt very video game-ish, like I was playing Fight Night on the PlayStation. Like, I don't quite get why they did that. It was a very sort of weird stylistic choice, which it only happens a few times in the film as well. It's not like every single time, so every time it happened it was kind of out of left field. That's a really small point, but probably the biggest problem I have with it is sort of like quote unquote villain character of it. The real life boxer, his name escapes me now. I'll check it out in a minute, but I thought he was a little too underdeveloped, and that was one of my criticisms from Rocky Balboa as well, is that you really don't care about that opposition that they're fighting, and which is a shame, because you sort of like go from like Rocky 1 to 4 really, and each one's got a memorable opponent. Rocky 1 and 2, it's Apollo. Well, Rocky 1, it's Apollo, then in 2 it's the rematch with them. 3, you have Mr. T as Clubber Lang, who is just amazing in that film, and then 4 obviously you have Ivan Drago, who's just fantastic. But then when it went more serious with Balboa and this one, they really don't get that much time. We only get like a very weak sort of motivation as to why they want to do the fight. They don't really have much personality or character, which I guess if you're sort of framing it in the world where this takes place, in the world of real world boxing, you're going to have something like that because they will feel like a real person rather than a larger than life character. I don't know, it's just a slight problem I have because I always think that, you know, the main character is just as good as his sort of like opponent or his villain, and they've never been that particularly memorable to me in the last two movies, and I hope they sort of like correct that as the franchise goes on a bit.
Yeah, and it's a disposable villain in the sense. I can't really spoil it, or you know about the prison thing. Should I just say it because it's not really important?
Yeah.
When you're introduced to the villain, they say, "Oh, he's going to have one more fight before he goes to prison for 7 years." They're like, "Okay, that's really random." I personally think he's just there because Stallone's an Everton fan. They wanted a real boxer, and they found an Everton fan. They found a Scouser, so they could actually get the settings properly. I don't know how the Americans reacted. The Scouse accents, notoriously hard for English people. So Christ knows what it's like for the Americans. But yeah, he's kind of there for the fight. But the good thing about him is that you can tell he's legit. And I've seen a video about half an hour ago with me recording. He when they're rehearsing the fight, he actually knocks out Michael B. Jordan, and blood flies out his mouth, and that's incredible. I'll show you the video later. I'll put it in the description.
Oh, I actually did it.
Yeah. When it shows them they're about to take, he kind of rehearses punching, then he slowly like reverses out. Then they say action. He just punches him, and he's completely knocked out. It's incredible.
Fucking hell. But yeah, I will actually say that it was kind of surreal yet amazing to actually have a Scouser in the Rocky franchise now.
I know. It's just like it went Liverpool, England. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then like you think London, and then it's like, I mean, I'm a massive football fan. It goes Goodison Park. I was like, what? And then it's like they're in the blue dressing room for Everton. I was there like, what's going on? And then it's like, oh, Goodison Park holds 100,000 people. It's like, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It holds 38,000.
Yeah, that was one of your big... Yeah, I remember you talking about that a while back. It's like, I didn't even know, you see, but yeah.
Oh, but that's it, really. I mean, I love this film.
And just really, really quickly before we move into spoilers, and Dwalin, the dwarf, plays the guy's manager as well, which was kind of amazing. Graham McTavish, the actor's name is fantastic in the Hobbit films. He's one of the best things about those films, and it was really just kind of awesome seeing him again in a different film, playing like a really slimy manager kind of character. But yeah, let's move into spoilers then. So, as I say, if you haven't seen the film, you don't want it spoiled, don't watch this point because we're going to be talking about the fight, the winner, and everything that goes along with it. Shall we kick off with Rocky's health first, or do you think you just want to jump into the montage?
Let's go for the montage first because it's before.
This montage was awesome. I loved it, and we get a few throughout the film. Really, like I think there's one where like Rocky's having his treatment in the hospital, and we get like a little one there. But the major one, I thought was just incredible. Absolutely loved it.
And what was great was just leading into it. Rocky decides, okay, I'm going to train up this kid. He's blah 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 blah. Let's go training. And the first thing I noticed was the return of the chickens.
Yeah.
That was great. It was really nice throwback. It's something that you can do in modern day because it would have looked stupid in the 80s, 70s, and it looks stupid today, and that's why it works. But it's actually such an effective technique in these films. But it's just, again, like they do the best montages these films, and it was just absolutely awesome. And it wasn't cheesy. There was no, as much as I would have loved Eye of the Tiger type, soundtrack. Yeah. It had the right sort of tone to it all, and it did suit the film. But it ends with him running in the street with the quad bikes, I think, or was that the second montage? But it was just awesome. It was just great.
Yeah, and you know, as much as I love my cheesy montages, like there's no shots of Adonis in this, like scaling a mountain and yelling his opponent's name from the summit. There's none of that stuff in this film. It's very sort of gritty and light, hard-edged as the original montages were. And going back to your point about the chickens, I absolutely love the stuff in this movie. With films like this that are sort of like a sequel or like a continuation of an old franchise, I usually hate when they do those really like forced in callbacks and lines and stuff like that because they never work as well. But in the case of this, like they don't do it a lot, but every time they do it, like with the chickens, it really does work. And it's funny because I think it works in that Rocky went through that himself, and it's nice to see it on the flip side now where he's playing the sort of Mickey character, the trainer, and you see it through different eyes. So I think that's why it might work a bit more. But this montage was just awesome. Like it's that new song I said. It's sort of like this franchise's answer to Gonna Fly Now. You've got like everyone like riding behind him on the bikes or running after him. It was just awesome. It really got me in the mood. And like, I mean, I was loving this film before then, but when it got to that bit, and Michael B. Jordan's just like training like an absolute animal for this fight. It really is inspiring stuff. Like there's a video on YouTube. It's got like all the Rocky montages together in one video, and it's definitely worth a watch. It's incredible. But on the flip side of that, let's go to the very emotional and very tragic Rocky's health plotline, because when, as you said, like it does happen really late into the movie, and in all honesty, I thought it was just going to happen right from the start, or maybe he was keeping it a secret. But like when he finds out and he says like he's not going to tell him, I thought, oh, this is going to be just tragic. This is going to be like the Mickey moment where, he's only seen signs of his ill health, but he never wanted to tell Rocky. And then, he dies tragically in Rocky 3. I thought that was going to be a similar situation in this, where Rocky was going to sort of like train him up, see him win the fight, and then after that he was going to sort of like bow out. But spoiler alert, he doesn't. Rocky lives to the end of the movie, so if we get a Creed 2, he is coming back for it.
Yeah, and I saw Star Wars spoiler: Han Solo dies. Okay. I was emotionally wrecked during Han Solo, and when I was watching this film, I was like, "You can't seriously be doing this again."
Yeah.
I can't lose.
Can't take it again.
I can't lose him and then Rocky. I mean, granted, I don't love Rocky as much as Star Wars, but the way it's done in this, there's this just. I remember when Adrian died, they don't really go over in detail. I can't remember Rocky 6, but it's off screen between 5 and 6. They kind of just mention it, and then Rocky gives the speech in the hospital in this film, which is single-handedly going to get him this nomination, where he's talking how Adrian, she took all the treatment, and she still passed away, and it gives so much depth because you don't really know how she died or the details behind it, but you do there, and you can understand where Rocky's coming from. But it's just when he's like collapsing and stuff, it was really painful to watch on screen. But fair play to Sylvester Stallone, because he does sell it. I mean, look at him in Expendables, he's been shot and he's never ever hurt, and then in this it's him acting genuinely fantastic. And I'm really happy he died. Oh, sorry, I'm really happy he survived. But I that if they do a second or third, I don't think he's going to be able to make. I was saying he's looking at retiring.
Yeah.
If he's going to bow out, I think he has the potential to have a far more impactful death than anything ever seen on screen. Considering he's had, by the end of Creed 2, it will be 8 performances as the same character, which might even overtake Hugh Jackman's role.
Which started from the 70s as well.
Exactly, that's 40 years.
He's a legacy character, he really is.
And it was just, I think, the sort of Oscar, when everyone was saying he's going to get nominated for the Oscars, I thought he's going to bite the dust and this will be really emotional, but he didn't. I'm happy, but I'm sad because it's going to eventually happen. But it was the fault is it does come very late, which arguably strengthens his illness when he's seeing how he's refusing to take treatment. But there's this scene where Michael B. Jordan's as good as Stallone is, where he finds out and he's like, I care about you, all of this sort of stuff. Granted, he's only just met him, but it's a powerful moment between both actors. And again, it's like kudos to the actors and to the director writing all of it. It was so well done, this film. And I think Rocky's health is the hardest bit to sell, because you're right, when it was in the synopsis, everyone was a bit worried, but they handled it really well in this film.
And I like that sort of like Rocky's at a place where he hasn't given up, but he's sort of like reached like the winter of his life, really. Like he's lost his wife Adrian with the last movie, and now when this movie starts off, he's also lost his best friend Paulie as well, which was really sad as well. Like because I believe the actor's still alive who played Paulie, and it would have been nice to have seen him back. But watching this film, I don't think there really would have been a place for him. I think he would have felt very out of place. He worked in Rocky Balboa obviously because it was about the loss of Adrian, and that was her brother. So in this, you really get the sense that he just hasn't got anything to fight for, and that's one of my favourite bits in this movie is that speech you were talking about between Adonis and Rocky, where Adonis finds out and Rocky's sort of giving up, saying like, I don't want to take the treatment, and Adonis says, look, I'm fighting, I'm training and everything, I'm not giving up, and I'm not going to go in for it if you're just going to give up as well. We're going to fight this together. And then that sort of gets him in the swing of things then, where he starts having the treatment, and even from his chair when he's having the treatment, he's still teaching him, he's still coaching him and everything like that, and I absolutely love that about it. If I was going to have a negative, it wouldn't be that the illness comes in halfway through the movie. It would, this is going to sound harsh, it would be the fact that Rocky does survive at the end. I think it would have been much more sort of emotionally satisfying to have Rocky go out in this one. It was the first film after 9 or 10 years really that we see Rocky come back. It's all about passing this on to a new character as the franchise goes forward. Maybe they wanted to sort of keep Stallone on because it would be a big draw for the sequels if this one didn't do too well, if it was sort of like an insurance policy for the franchise. Or maybe it was Stallone that demanded that he didn't want the character to go. But I just think it would have been much more sort of emotionally satisfying if Rocky had gone in this one. I would have took it very hard. There would have been manly tears shed at the end. But I don't know, maybe they want to save it for the right moment, because when you get to the fight at the end and sort of the fallout after that, to then just throw in, oh yeah, and then Rocky dies. That would have just been an absolute gut punch of an ending for this film. Whereas I think they, as you said, they'll probably save that for the second or third one, where Adonis is doing well on his own, and then Rocky goes, and then it's sort of how he has to deal with that, and fight his own corner now. I think that's probably what they'll do with it.
Yeah, the problem with the Rocky thing within this, you think he's going to go, it wouldn't make sense for him to go before the fight, but then it wouldn't make sense for him to go after the fight because of how it ends. I think if they're going to do it, then that has to be the main foundation. The whole film will have to be, written about his death, because everything's got to be bang on perfect. It would have happened during a fight, maybe in another room, we don't know. But I think it would have been so hard to introduce to us this new character, this new cast, and then have him go in the same film. Granted, I get what you mean. I thought he was going to go. It would have made better sense for him to go. But I think from the standpoint of the actual film, it strengthens it that he's alive, because you don't want him just to die and zap. That's it. You want a funeral. You want reactions. You want everything. Because you're right. It's a legacy character, and it's so different to Han Solo. I won't go into this kind of talk of both, but Rocky's his name's in the title of 6 of these films. When they're going to do it, they've got to handle it perfectly.
Yeah, and if Ryan Coogler comes back, I'm sure they can. He's a fantastic director, and I don't know if I'd like to see this film pass to a bunch of different directors, because this one was such a strong movie. I don't want to get a bad one, because for the Rocky franchise, for what it is, a lot of people bitch about Rocky 5, saying it's a terrible movie. It's definitely the worst one of the franchise, but I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a terrible movie. It's a deeply flawed one. But I think there are some strong moments in that film, and even that movie gets referenced briefly in this film. Adonis approaches Rocky and asks him to train him, and I think Rocky does a throwaway line somewhere where he says I trained someone at my own place once before, it didn't work out too well, or something like that, which is obviously a reference to Tommy Gunn from Rocky 5, where the whole film was sort of where he's training him at the house, and that's alienating his son. And you were talking about before we hit record, even his son gets a mention as well, so we get some closure to that character, where I think we learned that he's sort of got a new job somewhere, and he's just moved on. And the way that Rocky says it, it's sort of very matter of fact, maybe the son doesn't visit him all too much now. He's moving on with his life, and Rocky's sort of left in stasis on his own. And it's when I think when Adonis shows up, not only is it a way for him to redeem himself from allowing Apollo to die in the ring in Rocky 4, where he doesn't throw in the towel in time, I think he almost does see him as a sort of, a son figure as well, and he's determined to train him up because he wants to see him do well.
Yeah, and he has him move in with him. It's such a great connection, because it's the first scene as well when they meet, when they're at the restaurant, and he's talking about all the boxing stuff. And I thought they were really well introduced together, and the main aspect of this is the chemistry between Michael B. Jordan and Sylvester Stallone, because this film would be truly horrific if they didn't have the right match. And with the Rocky 5 stuff, you're right, it is almost his like adopted son in the new one. Sorry, but again, a lot could have gone wrong, but it didn't because it was done right.
And one thing, like, just we'll move into the fight in a minute. We're saving that till last because oh boy, that fight. But the fact that Rocky hasn't even spoke to Apollo's wife since that happened in Rocky 4. Like, every time I watch Rocky 4, I always found it like hilarious. Like, he goes to the funeral, and like the wife never says anything. There's no like big argument like, why the hell didn't you throw in the towel in time? Like, you could have stopped this fight like instantly. But I like that even after that, there's been some fallout. Like, Rocky's never had the courage to approach her after that incident, because you can see it, that he blames himself for what happened. But also in that film, Apollo's determined that, you know, he didn't want the fight to end. He was in that ring until the very end, even if it meant that he died. And that is exactly how it went down when Ivan Drago killed him. But I liked that Rocky sort of was taking that on board as well. Like, you could feel that weight on him all the time, and he felt that maybe training up Adonis was this sort of redemption for himself after what happened.
Yeah, and to the Rocky 3 stuff with the wife, I've seen the originals, I don't remember them that well, but when he brought up that then spoke in 30 years, that's a very powerful scene in that, because it's not something you'd think about, but when it's brought up, it gives this whole levity to Rocky where he really is responsible for it. And I think by him training Adonis is probably to him the acceptance of Apollo, where he wants to like kind of right his wrong, because they don't really explore it, but Rocky to a degree is probably feeling guilty that he could have, you know, helped this kid meet his father, but he never did, and it just strengthens it, and it's just incredibly done. I keep saying it, but I mean, we're very early in 2016, but this is easily going to be one of the best films of the year, I think. Certainly from a sports point of view, this is going to be in a lot of top 10 lists for the future.
Yeah, it'd definitely be in my top 10. Right, let's get into the bit everyone's been waiting for. Let's talk about the fight. Oh boy, this... with Rocky fights in the whole franchise, you really have to... Like the movies themselves, you have to rank them on two fronts. One is the sort of serious boxing match, like how one would go down. And then you get to like Rocky 3 and 4, where it's all very... Even Rocky 2 to some extent as well. Like, it's very over the top. Like, the punches they're throwing in Rocky 4, like, would kill a man with one punch. Like, I think Rocky's strategy in Rocky 4 is to, you know, rope-a-dope. Like, he's just going to take all the hits to tire Ivan Drago out, and then he's going to come back. But the thing is, he doesn't block. Like, he just takes all the hits to the face, but he just keeps on standing for, like, the full 15 rounds. And then Rocky Balboa came out, and it definitely went with the sort of like HBO sort of like sports sort of style of fighting. Like, you had the commentators, you had it framed and shot in a way that you would expect to see on TV. And I never really gravitated towards that kind of fight. Like, even Rocky 1 and 2, they felt more realistic, but they still had that like cinematic flair to it, where you knew you were watching a movie. It was sort of larger than life. You know, if you want to watch a real boxing match, you know, I'd turn on Sky Sports or something and watch it on there. So I never really enjoyed the fight in Rocky Balboa all that much. This one, I don't know what it was, but they just got it so right. Like, it was a combination of that HBO-style fighting, but I do think it managed to capture that sort of like cinematic feel to it, because without a shadow of doubt, this is one of like top 3 or top 2 favourite fights in the whole Rocky franchise. I was like on the edge of my seat the whole way through this. Now, I'm a huge boxing fan, you see. Like, whenever there's a big fight on, I'll always watch it. It's my favourite sport, so maybe it was that, but just how it was shot and everything. Like, even earlier on in the film as well, there's sort of it's almost shot like Birdman, like where there's no cuts, and it's just in the ring for like a full round. And it's so great to watch. Like, we've never seen that in a Rocky film before, so you can definitely tell the new directors worked on this. But this is why I want Ryan Coogler to come back, because that end fight is just some of the best stuff I've ever seen, like in a sports movie ever.
And what I love about the end fight, granted we kind of laugh saying it's a scouser, by casting a real boxer.
Yeah.
I think he's like a British champion or something. There is a lot of legitimacy to him, not just an amateur. You can feel the punches when they're thrown. As the fight goes on, you see how damaged they are. and it's just got this real sense. But going on to the HBO thing, you're right, because I remember seeing Rocky Balboa was the first ever Rocky film I saw at the cinema, and it was so HBO-ish. I was a bit worried at the start of Creed because they have a HBO advert for a fight, and then it actually gets to the real fight, and it's just the opposite. It is the real fighting. I want to say it's choreographed. Of course it's choreographed, but there's now a video of Michael B. Jordan getting knocked out, taking a punch for the cameras, and he got back up. Not on the video, but eventually he did. But it's just, it gives so much more gravitas to it, because you can tell when something. I love wrestling. It's fake. It's not. It is entertainment more than sport. However, they're athletes. When they take punches, it's hilarious. But when you see the real stuff like this, you know, you could easily cast a Rock type guy as someone to be a bad guy in a boxing ring, kind of like I forgot his name, but the Bonesaw in Spider-Man one.
Yes.
I forgot his name.
I
feel embarrassed now.
Yeah, same. Jesus Christ.
I'm really embarrassed because I'm a massive.
You know
wrestling
what?
fan.
You know what? Carry on. I've got to Google this because that's gonna we can't forget.
Macho Man Randy Savage. That's
the one.
You know how over the top it is. The punches are thrown. It's funny. It's Spider-Man. It's this wrestler, but there's so much legitimacy to it. It works. And as the fight goes on, you know, he's getting battered at the start. Then he comes back into it, but he doesn't come back into it in the way that a film would come back into it. As in, he started poor. He's fighting back. He's going to win. It's back and forth. It is almost a legitimate fight. And then the way it ends as well. I know I'm kind of jumping ahead almost 12 rounds. But when he knocks him down with a second to go and they're counting up, it's the most Hollywood way. Similar to the first Rocky film, you always think Rocky will win at the end of Rocky 1 when you first see it. And he shouldn't win because he's a new guy going up against a champion similar to Creed. And when the boxer gets back up at the end, okay, Creed hasn't won. But what I liked afterwards was the respect shown between the boxer and Creed, where he says, "You're the future of this division." Obviously, plot point, he's going to prison for 7 years and his titles will be vacant for Creed 2. But the fight works. It works better than I thought it could do. In all honesty, I wasn't actually looking forward to the fight. I was just looking forward to see how they could do the whole Creed Rocky angle. But the fight's just this really good bonus. However, it's distracting seeing Goodison Park with it being CGI'd in as well.
See, when I watched it, I didn't even know anything about that. So I'm gonna watch it back now and just look out for that CGI stuff. But you were talking as well about sort of like the final fight, like the outcome. They really were a lose-lose situation with the ending of this film, in that if they'd had Adonis win, then it would be completely just unrealistic in this sort of new realistic take of Rocky that they are doing. He is a newcomer and this is a champion, and it was sort of a level pegging fight most of the way through, but perhaps maybe the competitor did land a few more shots and get more power shots in. And if he'd have lost, which he obviously did, then it does skirt the line very close to the ending of the original Rocky. And it does exactly that. Like, at the end of Rocky 1, Apollo was basically sort of like just like a caricature of what Muhammad Ali was. Like, he's the very sort of trash talking, big headed boxer. But then during that fight where he is taking a beating by Rocky, it gets to that end where he says there ain't going to be no rematch. He sees that level of respect in his opponent, and we get exactly that in this one. And I think the competitor says something like, "You're going to get the title. You are going to be champion." And that's obviously what we'll see in the sequels if they ever get made, which I hope they do. But this final fight, and it's that one moment where Adonis just takes that absolute power shot and goes to the canvas. And it's that great moment where he sort of has like a flashback, and then he suddenly just like jolts to his feet, like almost like he's possessed. And that was just so awesome to watch, like him just like stand back up and carry on the fight. And he is just absolutely beaten to shit. Like, his eyes swollen shut, like he can't see anything through it. The makeup on that was great as well. Like, it really just looked horrible, like that injury that he took to the face. But the fight was so good. And as I said, like, I do love my over the top fights like Rocky 4, where every punch sounds like a whip crack. But I do think they managed to get the balance right with this one, with that sort of realism they sort of introduced with Rocky Balboa, but also add that sort of cinematic edge to it, which I think they needed, and they just got it so right. And, it ends on a hopeful note where Adonis's career is just going to skyrocket. Rocky is fighting, his battle with cancer. So I'm excited to see where it goes. So if we sort of round off now with what we think of the future of this franchise will be, do you think we're going to get a sequel to it? I mean, so far it was done on a budget of 35 mil. At the minute, it's taken 115.9 mil at the box office, so it's made almost triple its money. Do you think we're going to get a sequel to this at some point?
Oh yeah, I think we definitely will. Michael B. Jordan said he'd be up for doing a sequel. My main issue is Ryan Coogler. He's in talks to direct Black Panther. That's really exciting for me. I do like Marvel films. However, I would much rather see him direct Creed 2. My only tight angle with him directing Black Panther is it just seems that they're getting an ethnic minority to direct that because the actor is, and that sounds bad, but just do Creed 2, please. Whoever gets Black Panther, you're just going to be doing the job Marvel want you to do.
Absolutely, and you see, you mentioned earlier, like The Rock. I would love to see this franchise go the same route as the original Rocky, where 3 and 4 are just batshit insane, and we just get like a larger-than-life opponent with The Rock come in. Adonis has to fight The Rock. I would love to see that movie. Someone make that happen, for the love of God. But I'm trying to think, like, did Rocky Balboa get any sort of like Oscar hype, or
it won? Oh, what, the 06 one or the original?
The 06 one. I know the original did, but
yeah,
I was wondering
the original
if the comeback did.
The original won Best Film, which to me is still incredible. I'm not so sure, in all honesty. I'm just looking now. There's no accolades, but it did do very well at the box office. I think it was more of a sort of, it's a nice ending for the Rocky franchise that people liked it, and now we've got the legit passing the torch film that everyone's loved.
Well, it is. I just think it's kind of amazing that this one, it's getting, I don't know if it's getting like Oscar buzz and stuff, but it's getting award, nods, nominations, Golden Globes, everything like that. And I think that is quite impressive, like for a franchise like this, which is often considered, Tate, if you're listening to this, looking at you, but as that sort of dumb, shut your brain off sports movie. But I do think it has a lot of heart to it, and I think audiences are seeing that. It's getting great reviews so far. I don't think I've seen a single bad review about this film at the minute, and I think if they continue that, it is going to be amazing that if this can win any sort of Oscar award for anything, if Stallone gets one, I think that will curry favour with this film, and I really do hope that this franchise has legs and can carry on. If Rocky does sort of like die in it eventually, which we know he will at some point, I think that Michael B. Jordan's a fantastic lead. I think he's definitely got a great career ahead of him. And I just want to see more of these characters, because I thought this was fantastic. And, we got it in 2016, but I think if we'd have got this in 2015 as well, this would have definitely been on my list of favourite films that came out in 2015.
I found life in the darkest of times.
If I break, I ain't gonna fix it.
I found life.
Everything I got is moved on, and I'm here.
You sitting there crying about nobody's around for you. I'm here for you every day. I'm standing right in front of you.
Just like any other fight. So if I fight, you fight.
I found life on this planet. Damn it, I've been damaged, but I can manage. I won't take this for granted.
Bring back everything that's ever hurt you. All the pain you had inside. They don't know what we've been through. You belong here.
So yeah, we're coming up on pretty much like just under an hour now, so we'll round out now. Let us know in the comments what you thought of Creed. Everyone in the US, you've clearly had this for months, so let us know. You can follow us at Facebook at facebook.com/cinemasavvy, on Twitter at cinema_savvy, and Letterboxd at cinema_savvy as well. Get involved, let us know what you think of the Rocky franchise, what you thought of this movie and everything like that. As I say, so as the time of this recording, we are very much into Oscar season now. We are going to be reviewing all of the major films. There's definitely a lot of films to see, and my bank account is going to be significantly hit with going to see all these films at the cinema, but it's going to be all worth it, because it's great to get them all watched so that we have a perspective of full picture when we get into our live stream of the Oscars. So be sure to look out for our future reviews in that regard. And until next time, thank you very much for listening.